Tadvidyatatmano maya yata basho yata tamaha ritayartam yat pratiyeta na pratiyeta cha atmani tadvidyatatmano maya yata basho yata tamaha. Word to word translation, please repeat. Rite, without. Artam, value. Yat, that which. Pratiyeta, appears to be. Na, not. Pratiyeta, appears to be. Cha, and. Atmani, in relation to me. Tat, that. Vidyat, you must know. Atmanaha, my. Mayam, illusory energy. Yata, just as. Abhasaha, the reflection. Yata, as. Tamaha, the darkness. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Abhay Sharanaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation: O Brahma, whatever appears to be of any value, if it is without relation to me, has no reality. Know it as my illusory energy, that reflection which appears to be in darkness. Purport: in the previous verse, it has already been concluded that in any stage of the cosmic manifestation, its appearance, its sustenance, its growth, its interactions of different energies, its deterioration, and its disappearance, all has its basic relation with the existence of the personality of Godhead. And as such, whenever there is forgetfulness of this prime relation with the Lord, and whenever things are accepted as real without being related to the Lord, that conception is called a product of illusory energy of the Lord. Because nothing can exist without the Lord, it should be known that the illusory energy is also an energy of the Lord. The right conclusion of dovetailing everything in relationship with the Lord is called Yogamaya, or the energy of union. And the wrong conception of detaching a thing from its relationship with the Lord is called Lord's Daivimaya or Mahamaya. Both the Mayas also have connections with the Lord, but because nothing can exist without being related to Him. As such, the wrong conception of detaching relationships from the Lord is not false, but illusory. Misconceiving one thing for another thing is called illusion. For example, accepting a rope as a snake is illusion, but the rope is not false. The rope as it exists in front of the illusioned person is not at all false, but the acceptance is illusory. Therefore, the wrong conception of accepting this material manifestation as being divorced from the energy of Lord is illusion, but it is not false. And this illusory conception is called the reflection of the reality in the darkness of ignorance. Anything that appears as apparently not being produced out of my energy is called Maya. Here, Maya is capital M. This is Supreme Lord's saying. The conception that the living entity is formless or that the Supreme Lord is formless is also illusion. In the Bhagavad Gita 2.12, it was stated by the Lord in the midst of the battlefield that the warriors standing in front of Arjuna himself and even the Lord had all existed before. They were existing on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, and they would all continue to be individual personalities in the future also. Even after the annihilation of the present body and even after being liberated from the bondage of material existence. In all circumstances, the Lord and the living entities are individual personalities, and the personal features of both the Lord and living beings are never abolished. Only the influence of the illusory energy, the reflection of light in the darkness, can, by the mercy of the Lord, be removed. In the material world, the light of the sun is also not independent, nor is that of the moon. The real source of light is Brahmajyoti, which diffuses light from the transcendental body of the Lord. And the same light is reflected in varieties of light. The light of the sun, the light of the moon, the light of the fire, or the light of electricity. So the identity of the self as being unconnected with the Supreme Self, the Lord, is also illusion. And the false claim, I am the Supreme, is the last illusory snare of the same Maya, or the external energy of the Lord. The Vedanta Sutra in the very beginning affirms that everything is born from the Supreme. And thus, as explained in the previous verse, all individual living entities are born from the energy of the Supreme Living Being, the personality of Godhead. Brahma himself was born from the energy of the Lord, and all other living entities are born from the energy of the Lord through the agency of Brahma. None of them has any existence without being dovetailed with the Supreme Lord. The independence of the individual living entity is not real independence, but is just the reflection of the real independence existing in the Supreme Being, the Lord. The false claim of supreme independence by conditioned souls is illusion, and this conclusion is admitted in this verse. It's a long purport. You can finish the other half tomorrow. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shiyata Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shivashadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Kam karoti vachalam pankum langayate girim yat kripatamaham vande Shri Gurun dinatarinam paramanandamatavam Shri Chaitanyeshwaram Om Tat Sat. Hare Krishna. Pratyartam yat pratiyata na pratiyata chatmani tadvidyat atmano mayam yata basho yata tamaha. One of the 4 Chatur Shlokis. I'll read the translation again. O Brahma, whatever appears to be of any value, if it is without relation to me, has no reality. Know it as my illusory energy, that reflection which appears to be in darkness. Chapter title, Answers by Citing the Lord's Version. So we are continuing our discussion on the Chatur Shlokis, the 4 verses, that is the condensed form of Srimad Bhagavatam. So we discussed yesterday, Aham eva shamevagre nanyat yat sat asat param paschadaham yad yatacha yoshishyata sosmi aham. So Krishna tells to Lord Brahma that in the beginning only he existed, and whatever he sees in existence now, it's also him. And when everything finishes, whoever will remain is also the Supreme Lord. Srila Prabhupada uses this verse to drive home a very important point, which is, if you think about the origin of material existence, If you study about the creation, we are in second canto, third canto will describe in detail about the creation of this material universe. So originally there was Supreme Lord, always, Govindam Adi Purusham. Prabhupada, when he explains Virat Purusha, he also explains Virat Purusha is not Adi Purusha. Virat Purusha is just a Purusha. Prabhupada is explaining. But Supreme Lord is Adi Purusha. Krishna is Adi Purusha. Lord Brahma is called Adi Kavi, original poet or the engineer. But Krishna is Adi Purusha. So originally it was only Krishna who was there. And this is how the whole process of creation is explained. And then Krishna has got this multivarious energies. All these different material elements in their unmanifest stage, which means the 24 material elements are there and they are just sitting. There is nothing to bind them. They are not even active. They are just staying like that as it is. That inertia state of all the 24 material elements, that is called pradhana, it's mentioned. That unmanifest state of this material nature, that is called pradhana. So of these 24 elements, in Sankhya Yoga, if you study, it's explaining. So these 24 material elements, before any manifestation, in their mere existence, that is called pradhana. When the 25th element gets added to that, which is Lord's energy, or Lord himself, Krishna himself says, time. So when this 25th element of time gets added to these 24 elements, and then when material modes act on that, then Prabhupada says, then there is some activity there, but they still can't manifest. When that, with that slight agitation, when that mixture is actually ready, then Supreme Lord glances, injecting all the living entities there. So we have this pradhana, add that to the time, and add living entities to that. Then it is called as Mahatattva. Prabhupada says, when the Supreme Lord's glance touches on pradhana, which is also coming under the influence of time, Mother Nature, she gives birth to, Prabhupada says, the Supreme Cosmic Intelligence, and that's called the Mahatattva. Bhagavatam also explains that Mahatattva as Hiranmaya also, that which has the golden effulgence. That's the sum total of all cosmic intelligence. Prabhupada explains that this is how every universe came to be, and this is how rather the living entities in every universe came to be. And Prabhupada is also explaining that it's not that every universe is of the same size. Ours is the smallest. Prabhupada is saying there are other universes which are greatest. Proportionate to the size of the universe, the number of heads of Brahma will also change. If you look at that beautiful photo of Yasyaika Nishvashita Kalam Hatavalambya, where the different universes, it's there. We keep changing the photos. So when the universe come out of the body of Lord Vishnu, you will see some universes are small, some are big. Prabhupada is explaining, not every universe is of the same dimension. Some are biggest and some are smallest, but Prabhupada says ours is the smallest. So we have pradhana, which are the 24 elements in an unmanifest state. When they come under the influence of time, and when the Supreme Lord looks at that pradhana, the living entities, they are getting injected there. Prabhupada says, upon injection of the living entities into the mixture of pradhana and time, Prabhupada says, when that happens, when the Supreme Lord glances, that is the time when material nature gives birth to this big anda, Prabhupada says, which is the sum total of all cosmic intelligence, technically called Hiranmaya or Mahatattva. Mahatattva we hear very often. So this is how creation is explained. Now Prabhupada is using the previous verse, which is Canto 2, chapter 9, text 33, Aham evasham evagre. Prabhupada is saying, Krishna existed even before this material existence came to be. And Krishna will exist even after the annihilation of this material existence. Prabhupada is saying, this is the proof that Krishna is a spiritual person, not a material person. Why? Material creation itself happens only after Krishna starts to glance upon it. Till that point, there is no material creation at all. Prabhupada is saying, we can see here, creation has got a starting point and it has an ending point. If you look at it in the cosmic time scale perspective. So Prabhupada is saying just the very fact that creation started after Krishna and creation is finishing during the existence of the Supreme Lord, or even after the annihilation, the Supreme Lord is continuing to exist. Prabhupada is saying this is the proof that Supreme Lord is spiritual and not material. So coming to today's verse, Ritayartham yad pratiyeta, Supreme Lord is telling to Lord Brahma, we know this past time, Brahma tried to create the origin, or rather tried to figure out what the origin of all the creation was. And then he hears these two transcendental syllables, ta, pa. Then he sits for austerity. And after 100 celestial years, he then sees the Supreme Lord. And he also gets a darshan of the spiritual world. And you will see Lord Brahma would later, he also writes beautiful verses about his understanding, what we call as the Brahma Samhita, what he actually sees. So here, after Brahma successfully completes his induction program or tapasya, the Supreme Lord comes and he shakes his hand, feeling very happy. That's the original transcendental first handshake that happens. And then he is giving Lord Brahma Srimad Bhagavatam in its seed form. Now this is again another great proof for Brahma's intelligence also. Okay, when Brahma actually hears about Gayatri Mantra, and that too in the heart of Brahma, Tene Brahma Hridayadikavi, Supreme Lord is playing flute, he is hearing it. That seed form, that bija is enough for him to expand on that idea to create this entire universe. So same way, here the entire Srimad Bhagavatam he is squeezing and is giving in 4 verses. From 4 verses, Brahma is expanding to 18,000 verses. Amazing, right? How much Brahma can actually, and this is just one version of Bhagavatam. If you go to higher realms, they have even more verses. So Lord Brahma, Prabhupada says, he is not an ordinary personality. And Brahma's body is made of intelligence, it's mentioned. So here we can see Brahma is being congratulated by the Supreme Lord, and the Supreme Lord is now imparting this knowledge, and Brahma is the original Acharya. As the original Acharya, he is actually getting knowledge directly. Like Imam Vivashvate Yogam, Supreme Lord actually says in 4th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. How when he starts a parampara, he always tells it to the topmost devotee in that. So Imam Vivashvate Yogam, Krishna says, I have given this transcendental science to Vivashwan. Likewise it goes. So here also you see the Supreme Lord is giving this knowledge to Brahma. Brahma in turn will meditate on that knowledge and then he will create. If you continue to read, you will see how Brahma creates each of the different universes, each of the different living entities, how he is placing each one of them, because he needs to find a proper space for them, proper realm for them. If you put them in the same place, they will fight with each other. And you will see this whole ordeal which Lord Brahma had to go through to create creation in a certain way rather, and to locate each one of the different living entities in each one of them. And you will see, as part of this creation also, there are different coverings of this universe. In some descriptions, you will find there are 7 coverings to this universe. First is made of water, then air, fire, like that it will go. Each one is 10 times prior to the previous layer. I was once saying this in one class. Prabhu, I always hear this. One devotee was telling me. Everyone was saying every layer is 10 times greater than the previous. That's fine, Prabhu, but what's the original thickness of the first layer? The first layer is 10 times the thickness of the diameter of the universe. So diameter of the universe is 4 billion miles. So the first layer is 10 times 4 billion. That's the thickness. And then you multiply 10 times more. I hope I clarified that. So each of the different universes, this is how they came to be. And the Supreme Lord is then giving this opportunity to Lord Brahma to do Atra Sarga Visargascha, the secondary creation. And Prabhupada is explaining in this purport, why did living entities come here? And if you read 7th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says there is only 2 reasons why the living entities are here. Ichcha dvesha samutena dvandva mohena bharata sarva bhutani samoham sargayanti parantapa. Ichcha and dvesha, desire to lord it over material nature, that's the first reason why living entity is here. And dvesha is envy or hatred. Envy for the Supreme Lord. These are the 2 reasons that actually makes a living entity to be born in this delusion of dualities of desires and hatred. This is how Lord Krishna, he explains. So Prabhupada is saying, after somebody is born in this world, one may actually look for different ways how they can again elevate themselves to the higher platform of going to Krishna consciousness. But in that process, there can be many pitfalls. And Prabhupada explains in one place, in Bhagavatam, that initially a living entity tries to enjoy this materialistic, sense gratificatory avenues, so to speak. And we'll see how any living entity, where initially they try to do, being totally in an atheistic mode, in the denial of the Supreme Lord, and the living entity tries to enjoy. And after that, the living entity comes in contact with Vedic injunction, okay, goes one step further. Now, living entity tries to enjoy in Karma Kanda. Likewise, it goes. And then, once it comes to a platform wherein the living entity realizes there is no point in enjoying any of this, it gets frustrated, Prabhupada is saying. So even though somebody may follow Karma Kanda and try to enjoy, but the living entity is not satisfied. The Jiva is not satisfied. The Jiva is not happy Jiva yet. It's still unhappy Jiva. But as it continues to enjoy, Prabhupada says, at one point, even after fulfilling all the desires of one's heart, still he is not feeling satisfied. And Prabhupada is saying, in that frustration, now the living entity takes up to this process of trying to dominate over other living entities. Prabhupada is saying that is the reason why they go for acquiring Siddhi. And Prabhupada says, and the topmost snare of Maya, Prabhupada says, is to think, even this is not working. Even after getting Siddhi, they understand, what is this? I may be able to float, but I'm not able to still achieve what I want. You will come across even Puranic stories of many Siddhas who try to conquer and they say, do achieve a certain Siddhi, only to be checkmated or only to be defeated by someone else with a greater Siddhi. So there is confusion, there is fight between different Siddhas also. And then finally they give up all of this and they say, only solution is, I will become God. Then they give up, they come in contact with the Mayavadi philosophy, and Prabhupada says, then they go. Prabhupada explains beautifully. Prabhupada says, the very reason, Prabhupada is giving this way. If you take a sun and there is a sunshine, if you ask about what is the residence of sunshine, Prabhupada says there is no residence at all. It's still going everywhere. Correct? There is no specific residence for sunshine. If somebody is a person, the person will have some residence in a sun planet. But sunshine as such has got no residence. Prabhupada is saying, in the same way, whoever achieves Sayujya Mukti, they are still not in the spiritual world because they have no destination at all. And Prabhupada is giving this example. Just like how sunshine has got no set residence, similarly those who attain Sayujya Mukti, even they also don't have any specific residence. They are also floating only. And Prabhupada says because of that, they will also fall down at one point because there is no satisfaction. There is still a vacuum in their heart that they are not able to serve. But even after that, somebody actually comes closer, Prabhupada saying, then by the mercy of devotees, if one comes in contact with the pure devotee, or if one comes in contact with the Supreme Lord somehow or other, then Prabhupada says, then one is shown the right path and one is then put in this path of self-realization. And Prabhupada saying self-realization means Krishna consciousness, because understanding self, even by speculatory method, to think that I am servant of God and to think that I am here simply to serve the Supreme Lord, Prabhupada says that doesn't achieve much unless somebody gets into that and does active devotional service. Unless somebody does the active devotional service simply by speculating, Prabhupada says it's not good enough. That's not self-realization. Because Prabhupada says there is the end result of the imagination is more imagination. One can keep on speculating. But until one comes to this final point that unless I surrender to the Supreme Lord, I cannot come out of this illusion that I am this body. Prabhupada says unless someone comes to that point of serving the Supreme Lord, it's very hard. Now even in this path of Krishna consciousness, we will see many instances where even demigods get bewildered. Okay, it's mentioned, if you read Rishabdev's pastime, 5th canto. When Rishabdev actually appeared in this world, everyone knew he is a Mahapurusha. And everyone was glorifying. When Rishabdev was born, even the higher denizens, they were all throwing flowers. Even Indra is throwing flowers. But then, as he was throwing flowers, he's looking at everyone. Everyone is looking, and at one point, because he is the king of all demigods, usually he gets this illusion that he's the, cynosure of everyone's eyes. Everyone is looking at me. And then, thinking that everyone is looking at him, he is just offering flowers. But then suddenly he realizes, actually not everyone is looking at me. Then he's looking around, nobody is looking at him. Everyone is, till that point, they were looking at him, at his heavenly opulence, at his kingship. But then suddenly when Supreme Lord appears, everyone's eyes turn towards the Supreme Lord. Now Indra gets hurt. He's just like, what is this? I'm going to stop the rain. This time, initially in Vrajabhumi Leela, he gives too much rain. In this instance, he tries to stop the rain. Then Rishabdev, he is born. He just looks at the clouds and he just points his finger there. Clouds come together and they start to rain. That is when Indra realizes, my God, nothing is in my control. Everything is controlled by the Supreme Lord. So you will see, even coming in this path also, it's very easy to get bewildered. It's very easy to get carried away by false ego. So that's why Prabhupada says real independence means only Supreme Lord and Supreme Lord's devotees, they have real independence. You will come across instance of Narada Muni. Narada Muni is like, everywhere. In every universe you will find. He does bhajan and he does preaching simultaneously also. He has disciples among a range of living entities, from Mrigari to somebody born in demoniac family. You will go all the way. Everywhere you will see Narada Muni. So so Prabhupada says, if you surrender to the Supreme Lord, then one is actually given supreme independence. So in this verse, he is saying, whatever appears to be of any value, if it is without relation to me, has no reality, know it as my illusory energy, that reflection which appears to be in darkness. If we go one level deep and see how this is actually relevant even inside the process of Krishna consciousness, many times we may be doing some service thinking that this is pleasing the Supreme Lord, this is pleasing my authority, this is pleasing Prabhupada, and we would just be doing whatever we like to do. Now it is still devotional service, but it may not necessarily please the Supreme Lord. Pleasing the Supreme Lord is different, and surviving or doing something to survive in Krishna consciousness is completely different. Prabhupada says in one conversation that there was a guru who actually told a disciple, I'm feeling thirsty, please get me water. And the disciple brought milk. And the guru is asking, why are you bringing milk? Then the disciple said, Gurudev, milk is superior than water. And then he is giving milk here. So Prabhupada says, that is not intelligence properly utilized. Here somebody is actually trying to go even past the guru. If the guru says water, Prabhupada says, then all he needs is just water. Guru or hitam, the pleasure of the guru, that's what matters. So, inside Krishna consciousness, we may be doing sometimes. Once when one disciple actually asked Prabhupada, if we do devotional service, will we be happy? Prabhupada says, yes. And then the devotee extends that question and says, Prabhupada, what if I do devotional service and I don't feel happy? Then Prabhupada laughs and he says, then that's not devotional service. It means something else. Prabhupada is saying in one place, beautiful analogy. Even though externally a person may actually be, or a devotee may look like doing some karmic activity, still there is no bondage. And Prabhupada gives the example, just because one comes in contact with the policeman doesn't mean one becomes a criminal straight away. Only those who have not followed the laws of the land properly, they need to fear. When they come in contact with policemen, Prabhupada says, yes, then they will get arrested. But as far as devotees are concerned, just like any other normal citizen, when they come in contact with the police are friends of the citizen. They don't feel any influence by that in a negative way. They don't get arrested or something. There is no fear. So Prabhupada is saying, so similarly, material nature is always there. It's not that a living entity, when it comes in contact with the material nature, gets suddenly influenced. And to explain that, Prabhupada is using another analogy, saying it's not that even if there is some microbe or like some virus, rather, not everyone will get affected. In one instance, I'm going into one more pastime there. In New Vrindavan, Prabhupada was seated and there is a lot of disciples there. One disciple, Hayagriva Prabhu, he had hay fever. He started to sneeze. And he tells to Prabhupada, sorry, this hay fever, reason is pollen grain. Prabhupada is saying, no, that's karma. Then Hagari Prabhupada, no Prabhupada, he's explaining, no Prabhupada, it's the pollen, this is the season. Prabhupada is saying, no, it's karma. And Prabhupada is laughing and he's saying, you look at everyone in this room, there is 50 people here. Why it's affecting only you? So Prabhupada is saying, this is karma. And then Hagari Prabhu also smiles. So here, point we have to understand is that everything that we are actually doing in this material world is simply for our pleasure, or rather for the Supreme Lord's pleasure. But the Supreme Lord's pleasure, if we make sure that is achieved, then Prabhupada says automatically our desires are also getting achieved. Because the living entity in its pure form, it won't be satisfied with everything. But to come to that platform of practicing Krishna consciousness, Prabhupada says there is faith involved. So initially, these three steps that if we read Nectar of Devotion, which Rupa Goswami actually says, Adavo Guru Padashraya, starting from there, one takes shelter of the Guru, one takes initiation from the Guru, takes instructions from the Guru, and then try to satisfy those instructions and try to hear from Guru what is it that's pleasing him. Prabhupada says, if one simply follows this path of finding what the desires of the Guru and trying to satisfy the Guru, learning from him how to do devotional service, then Prabhupada says that is the only way how one can come out of the illusory path. Otherwise, it's very easy even inside Krishna consciousness to get bewildered, thinking that whatever my service is, I'm actually pleasing the Guru, but it's necessarily not so. It is still good, it will keep us inside Krishna consciousness, but it may not come under pure devotional service, because at the end of the day, the intention matters. What are we trying to achieve and who are we trying to please? If the focus is just to the Supreme Lord, then our life is success. But if the focus is, I would like to do this, so I'm going to do whatever I like to do all the time, then it's still good, it's still devotional service, but not necessarily pure. What it means is that our journey will be equally tough. The more, Prabhupada says, more we surrender our free will to the Supreme Lord, more independence we get. Just like somebody who follows the rules of the road, they always have independence to drive the car any time of the day, any time of the year. However, those who actually breach the law, they lose the license. So even though in one sense they are surrendering, they are given independence within the realm of that surrender. We'll finish here. ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय, श्री श्री राधा गोपीनाथ भगवान की जय, जगत गुरु श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय, समवेद गौर भक्त वृंद की जय, जय निताय गौर परमानंदे, हरि हरि बोल।